I'd like to call to order the City of Muskego Library Board Strategic Planning Committee on October 29th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m.
All right.
Can we all stand for the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you take the roll call?
You bet. Phyllis?
Here.
Carrie?
Here.
Kristen?
Here.
All right. We have the representation of the Strategic Planning Committee present.
All right. The statement of public notice
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
and public comment. There is no one
No one,
that I see.
no one online, no one here.
Okay. I'd like an approval of the minutes for, when was the last meeting?
Yeah, it says right underneath. Yep.
November 8th, 2023.
Now, I just want to recognize that, Kristen, you weren't here
Right.
for the last minutes. So you are welcome to vote. You're also welcome to abstain if you don't want to.
I would prefer to abstain since I wasn't present.
Yeah, makes sense.
And also Phyllis was not here.
So,
So how do we approve them?
I mean, I would say one approval, two abstentions, and then I will triple check. I mean, like, that's how we'll write it down.
Okay.
And
Because you two don't vote.
I can't vote.
Right?
No.
So,
yeah, I think we'll just say exactly what is, and
okay.
it's fine. It's just the way it is.
Okay. Well, can I get a motion to approve?
I think there can be a first and
Can
a
I say
second.
it?
I mean, someone can first it without
Okay.
approving it, so.
I move to approve the minutes from the last meeting, November 8th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All votes for aye.
One in favor, okay.
Nays? Abstentions?
All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the minutes are, we're not quite sure what they are. I'm going to triple check with Robert's rules, but I'll document them in these minutes.
Yeah.
However, they're supposed to be represented based on that. So
And I almost brought Robert's rules with me. I have the book in my car usually.
nice. Well, we have a copy in the library, but we'll figure it out for the written minutes. So.
All right. Chairperson's report. I don't have a report today. So unfinished business, there is none. New business is discussion of the draft of the 2025 action plan.
I am just going to pull it up. So, here I am. So, just sort of reiterate what I said in the email. This action plan is a 1-year snapshot of goals. The goals, the ones that are in bold, are higher level goals from our strategic plan. So we keep these goals and then we carry them through the 5-year plan. And then we come up with metrics on how we want to meet those goals each of the 5 years. And we did that huge process back in 2022, thank you, where we collected those thousands of data points through a variety of measures. And so most of these data points are still from that.
Right.
Sometimes we tweak them if we came up with new ideas since then, right? Mm-hmm. The strategic plan really is a living document. It's not a tablet carved in stone because new innovations will happen since we've gathered that data, and things may not become relevant. Like we may have, oh, well, we don't need to do that anymore because we solved that issue a different way.
Right.
So it's a good guiding point. It's a representation of the community's voice. And then from there, we try to prioritize and adjust as we need to.
Mhm.
So this is the second year of our 5-year plan. So a lot of the stuff is still, I would say, really relevant and fresh. What Sam and I did is we spent a lot of time over the past couple of months looking at these, determining, are they still relevant, right? Where do they, they're still, making sure that they fit with these overarching goals. And then, very importantly, is it a plan that we can execute, right? Because these goals all have a staff time and sometimes a budget consequence to it. And we want to make sure, the term I've been using is load balance. We want to make sure that we haven't dumped 60% of these action items on Sam, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting here like, oh man, what an easy year this is. I have nothing. So we want to make sure that we're picking items that are priorities. We're covering these different strategic initiatives, the facilities, the services, and community and outreach, and that staff all are represented in this plan. They have things to do, and not one staff member is too overloaded. So we had lots of spreadsheets with staff members, and not only were we looking at quantity, but also the quality of it, right? Like the execution and logistics planning for the renovation of the parking lot is not to be equally equated to refreshing all dead links on a website, right? Like those two things will take different amounts of time. And so one of the things that Sam and I did to make sure that this was a feasible plan to bring before you is trying to make sure that not only the quantity, but the quality was in balance for each staff member. So I just want to assure you that that has been addressed. So what you see before you, the staff members aren't assigned to it in this document because we don't assign staff members in the public document, but just know we've taken that into account as we're considering this. So that's sort of how this has come before you in this state, and we're happy to answer any questions about what any of these mean, about why they're on the plan, why we feel it's a priority now, what the budget consequence might be of any particular line item. So anything at all. Yes.
Assess use of display cases in lobby.
Mhm.
I just want some education. Is that
Absolutely.
something you can just walk by and say, that's not visually attractive, it's not very informational, I think I'll update it next week? Is it as simple as that or no? Because I don't think it would be on the strategic plan
Yeah.
if it was.
Yeah, great question. So it's not so much are our displays effective. It's what is the purpose of each display case. So we have, when you walk in, there's 4 display cases. The first one on the left has been empty for a really long time. And then we just threw up a blown up copy of our brochure in it just to put something in it. Lately, what the friends and I have been talking about is making it a donor wall for large donors with like wood book spines that have the donor's name carved into it. So like it's those, like that display case could serve us much better than what it's currently doing. And so we've started talking about that already. And so that's part of what that line item will be. The Friends display case is the next one on the left. That I don't see changing too much. It serves a purpose. It serves an effective purpose. The display case on the first right as you walk in is for our public notices, but maybe we could, that one's more of like, we found out that someone tried to post their own personal stuff in it, and we were like, oh, maybe we need to like brand this better. So it's serving a functional purpose and it needs to serve that purpose, but maybe we need to configure it or relabel it. And then the last one is a display case that community groups can reserve. And we have a policy assigned to that, but we need to look at the policy and make sure it's up to date. Library board needs to review policies every however many years, and that's one of the few the board has not looked at in a while. So I need to bring that before the board. So that's going to be part of that. is the board still happy with that policy connected to that display? And also, do we need to think about its capacity? Because right now it gets used and then there are gaps of time when it's not used. So maybe we need to like talk about it more to community groups. Like for a while, like people were using it, but then we have some like the Lions Club, they use it pretty
Senior
much.
taxi.
Senior taxi. So some groups really know about it, but we may have new groups or groups that leadership has changed that don't. So assess the use of display cases in lobby really encompasses all of those things I just talked about. So
Definitely it's much more clear. Thank you.
yeah, and it's tricky because we want to make these as like clear as possible, but at the same time, we want to make this document not like 12 pages. So,
Yeah.
but I agree with you. That one is probably more
Ambiguous.
ambiguous. Yep.
And it's hard too because sometimes you don't want to say things like start a donor wall in lobby display case when the friends may look at that and decide, oh, actually we have this better location, and then you've put it into something as an action item and that makes it harder to change. So some of the terminology like assess use is, like you said, kind of all encompassing for
Because we don't quite know where it's going to come. Like the
Right.
point is, we need to
Needs to be
make
worked out.
space to think about these display cases. We walk by them every day.
Mhm.
This line item is going to ensure that we take the time and make the time to do it. So
And I do appreciate the way this is laid out in the action plan in terms of brevity. I think because I don't have a lot of legacy knowledge coming into this committee that I appreciate some of that educational background. So thank you.
absolutely. So that's perfect. Kristen perfectly demonstrated exactly why we're here. So any other line items that you want more clarification on or how it serves the library?
How about the tree health?
Oh, the tree health. So
Yeah,
you know, we have those two front trees there that are experiencing top dieback. And, you know, it may seem so simple as we'll just call a person and pull it out. But it's like, how expensive is that going to be? What do we do with it? Do we just fill the hole with dirt? Do we plant new trees? If so, what kind of trees? I
Yeah,
want
we
to talk
don't
to
want it to happen
conservation.
again.
We want it to be native trees. And yeah, we don't want the same thing to happen again. Do we want to try to get sponsorship for the trees? Do we want to see if a Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop might want to help us plant the tree? These are not the only trees that are dying. I just took a little mini walk right before this meeting started because I heard it was nice out, and it sure was. And I'm walking by and I was like, that tree is completely dead. And I didn't even know it because I very rarely walk into the swampy area of the library towards the front when it rains. And I was like, that tree is dead. I didn't notice it. So it's more of like, okay, I need to walk the property. I need to talk to the conservationist. I need to figure out, are we planting more of these trees? Who's doing it? Are we going to get all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So
Very silly question then on this same topic. If you have plants on your property that are dying, that falls under the library budget or the city budget?
library budget, because it's on library property.
Okay.
And so, and our goal when we ask for funds from the city in that building maintenance budget is to ask for anything that we would need to care for not just the building, but the property. Now, in some cases, because again, we have a great relationship with the city, those 3 trees that are in the back amphitheater, those were planted fairly recently. We wanted to see if we could get some shade so that when performances took place, shade would happen. As it turns out, the shade only happens in the afternoon, not the morning when we actually have the programs. But still, it's nice to have the trees back there. Those trees were free to us because the city had a conservation grant. And I went to them and I said, hey, any money for the library possibly? And they were awesome and they got those trees. So that didn't cost us anything. And of course, they don't charge us for the city conservationist time. There are some municipalities that charge for the, like the expertise of like their IT department or anything like that. We're a city department. I've never thought that was an okay thing. We're and so I'm grateful to the city that they don't do that. For example, when there was a tree that was sort of about to come down and DPW actually came and took care of it for us. So, there's a lot that they do for us, but at the end of the day, they have their own budgets that they had to set aside for trees. So if they had the money, they might spot us if they had some extra, but sometimes they don't. So we'll see what happens. Our maintenance budget, spoiler alert for the November meeting, was not increased. I tried to increase it for next year just because of all the things that happened.
Right.
But it was they needed to find dollars where they could in the budget. So our maintenance and building and grounds budget is the same as it was last year. So that's why I'm saying I bet we could get a sponsorship for the trees from someplace, a company or a business or a land, something like that. So we'll work on that. But yeah, I just on my little walk, I was like, there's more trees that look unhealthy than I thought. Not like an egregious amount. We're not, but I saw one or two more that.
It's harder to tell this time of year because
they just lost all the leaves.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a coniferous plant or tree, it's a tall one. It turns gold naturally every year. So It looks like it's going, but it's okay.
And it is funny because it sounds like it's so simple, but again, I need to make the time to do that, to walk the property, to document everything, to meet with the conservationist, to talk about the removal, to get, and so again, we put it in the plan because you can't always find the time unless you make the time. So,
Amen.
I had an idea for you.
For what page are we on?
It's on the page 5.
Page 5, okay.
In the second section for assess and make library space improvements to maximize use. The second from the bottom, the investigate signage to show the different topics of nonfiction call number ranges.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of an idea that would be a low cost solution that would, it could just be temporary, but I thought you could have a contest and you could have kids, adults, teens, anybody who wants to make pictures or signs about the different call numbers.
Sure, yeah.
Any that look good, you can just post them,
Yeah.
It wouldn't have to be like official signs.
Sure.
And I thought it would be cheap and it would be helping kids learn the call numbers and things too.
Yeah, in the kids area. That's a cute idea.
Yeah, in the kids area. I don't know about doing that in the adult section. I think you'd have to have words for the adults.
Yeah, no, I like that idea.
And I also think a lot of times teens are interested in doing something creative. So
yeah, it's a fun idea. Our parking lot was approved for next year in its entirety.
wow.
So it will be good to get that entrance widened. It will be good to get it nice and flat. And it's like the parking lot knew that it just had to hold on until I could get the funding because the dumpster area is like spitting up rocks now, like basically because all it took was like one of the shattered pieces to sort of come out, and then every time anyone walks or drives over it now, like larger chunks are going to like the winter. Once spring comes, it'll be a very interesting sight under the snow. So that will be positive. And so one of the things on here is the bid process and implementation of the parking lot reconstruction. And of course, we don't have the luxury of just shutting down for 4 days. So we're going to have to do it in phases. And luckily, my gym just redid their parking lot, so I was very much watching every time I drove in. I'm like, I see how they did that. That was a good idea. So hopefully we will make that as low impact as possible, and we'll try to pick a time of year, obviously not summer.
Yep.
Right. So that's really great news. And I think, election time, a lot of traffic comes in for that, and I think a lot of people will note if it doesn't look good.
Yes. I mean,
it'll be high profile.
Even those trees dying, I had to like send an informational message to staff because we were having so many people being like, "Did you know your trees are dead?" I'm like, "We know."
Oh, really?
So people will, same with the light poles, we know it's just a matter of planning and timing and money and stuff like that. But, and that's a good thing. It means the people care about the property. They're paying attention.
Right. That's nice.
It's a very good problem to have. And we're so fortunate that so much has been done to this building to make it seem refreshed and beautiful, that when something like a dead tree or a parking lot with major gouges in it, like, you notice it because it's a contrast to the quality elsewhere. So just see if there's anything else. If you look at packet page 6 under the first big goal, one of the things, we want to make sure that our collection continues to serve the population. And it's been a great year for checkouts, right? I'll point this out at our November meeting, but our physical circulation is higher than it was last year, right? And so was our electronic circulation. And so something that I like to tell people is, it's not that people are choosing to put down the physical item instead of electronic. They're just reading more. They're reading more physical. They're reading more electronic. People are just reading more. And I'm not surprised. This community is huge on education and reading and personal development. So it's not a surprise. But one of the things that we as a library have to continue to be monitoring is our ebook and e-audiobook collection. Our wait times continue to be long. Hoopla, we had to restrict it a bit across the system because it was going over budget because it's a charge per title database. So the nice thing is there's no wait time on those items. So it's nice to have a balance of the database that gives you the ready now. I'm about to get on a plane. I have a great access to, but I got to be picky about the 2 that I pick from Hoopla because I only get 2 a month. So we're just going to need to continue to watch that in the future because I do not believe that the interest in ebooks and e-audiobooks is going to lessen.
Yeah.
And of course, we have shifted some funds from print to physical, but we can't completely rob the physical because all we see is the trajectory for physical going up. And Sam, I don't know if you want to talk about the large print collection at all, and the value it brings to patrons.
Yeah, happy to. So, it kind of says in there, it's a growing senior population. We know that about Muskego. They're building more senior residences and things like that. The demand for our large print collection has gone up not only by seniors, but also for accessibility reasons. It's easier on the eyes. I think people of all different ages have kind of discovered it as a format. So we want to make sure that we're reflecting that population and that need within the collection itself, because I think sometimes it can be seen as an add-on instead of its own unique collection. We want to be developing that, making sure that we're offering a variety of materials. We do deposit collections that go to the senior residences. So we have a staff member who will put together almost like a curated mini collection that gets sent every month or every other month, depending on the facility, to the different residences like Tudor Oaks or Stony Creek. And so we want to make sure that we're providing services and partnering with those community groups and organizations. So that's why that's a line item in there, is we want to take a closer look and make sure, percentage-wise, fund-wise, how much are we dedicating? Is it enough? Do we have space physically to grow that collection, which is great, so we could funnel more into it. But, of course, you want to balance that within the collection spread itself.
Right. Do they make requests?
They can, yep. And you mean at the different residences?
For example, if you're living at Tudor Oaks and you want to know what happens in the next book in a series, do they request?
So Laura does have feedback cards, so they can write in comments and things like that. We don't necessarily take specific title requests by specific patrons, unless they want to do it on their own library card, which we can do separately. But if she knows, yes, that a series is popular or an author or something, she has very detailed notes. And it really is curated for that community. The different residences each have different readers that have different preferences. And she really takes a lot of time to make sure that they're getting books that will be appealing to that audience.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great community outreach connection. I mean, we want people to stay connected to the library and to reading. And this way, even if they have mobility issues or car issues or, you know, can't necessarily make it, it's a way to get the library to them. It's nice because we work closely with usually it's like the activities director. They come and they pick up, you know, the collections and drop off the old collections in like tubs. So we have it kind of on like a system and a cycle. And it's good. It's positive. We've gone, like I went to Staircrest when they first opened, and I just sat at a table and made library cards, you know, for everyone that was moving in. So we really try hard to make sure that people are aware of our services. And I did a presentation on electronic resources there too, because again, some more and more we're having people who feel comfortable with the ebooks and the e-audio books. And, you know, again, if you don't always have access to drive and come here, if you feel comfortable using those resources, your world becomes a lot more flexible. So
Just a side question, you made me think of it. Do we have a demand for Braille materials here?
Not. I feel like we had this discussion,
we
and
just
it
talked
is
about
such
this very
a
recently.
chicken and egg thing where we don't really get requests for Braille materials, but we also don't currently offer Braille materials. And so it's really hard to monitor, and that's something we have a contact at Bridges. There's someone who focuses on accessible services, and she's a really great resource for us. We reached out to talk about, you know, is this something, or like, how would we go about determining what the demand would be, or if we would benefit from getting, because Brittany and I were looking at, because one of the items is accessible technology. I feel like that's like an ongoing one. And so we were looking at a Braille typewriter and things, and we had reached out, and unfortunately the answer was not particularly great, because it was kind of like, well, maybe reach out to the libraries that have them and find out how much people are using them or how they market them or things like that. But there really wasn't anything saying, yes, we've been getting a lot of requests for this or something. And sometimes I don't know if that's because we're not currently offering it, so people don't know that we have it, or if it's just, is now Braille still as popular, or now that electronic readers that can voice things have become more popular, is that more how people are going? You know, is like electronic, like voice to text keyboards or things like that. Maybe it's the platform has changed a little. So it's certainly something we could look into, but we don't really have an extensive, we have a few books about learning Braille and things like that, but we don't really have an extensive Braille collection.
Where I grew up in Florida, and I have a blind relative, there was a local school for the blind, and there were organizations for the members of the blind community. I don't even know if there is a local one here.
There is. It's the Milwaukee Talking Book and Braille Library. So there's one, right? It's in the Central Library downtown, which is another fantastic point, is they would be someone we probably would reach out to. But I think not, of course, that it's not great to have things in-house, but they are relatively so close that, and they have an extensive Braille collection. They have probably their own typewriters and things like that. And you don't have to be a Milwaukee County resident the way that you do for the Milwaukee Public Library. The Wisconsin Talking Book and Braille it's located in Milwaukee at the Central Branch, but it's for the whole state. So we do have materials here that refer people to that, because of course they're welcome to use our audiobooks or ebooks or things like that if that would fit their needs. But if they have qualifying and it's not even low vision, they have some mobility things. Like if you physically would have trouble holding up a book, you can also qualify for the program, and they will send you a reader and cartridges and things to your house. So you don't even have to go in. You have to fill out a form, and there might be like a one-time assessment or something like that, depending on the circumstances. But then after that, they'll do it by mail. We have the information for that, and that's generally where we would refer people.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, and it's actually interesting, and this was really like sort of an ableist viewpoint I had before I stopped to consider it. So you'll see one of the other bullet points, 2 down from large print, evaluate playaway collection. So at first I thought, this is just a bridge collection, right? They're the little MP3 players that you check out. The audiobook is on them. You just plug in headphones, and then you can listen to the book. And really, they were sort of the shift from CD audiobooks to like really almost like a little iPod, right? And then eventually we started getting like Hoopla and Libby, and everyone was just doing it on their phone if they wanted to listen to it. And I was thinking, well, this collection, it's going to phase out very quickly, right? It was a bridge for the people who didn't feel comfortable downloading apps on their phone, because you just have to push play and go. And then I took a minute. I don't know how the realization came to me. I'm sure somebody might have hit me over the head with it or whatnot. But that people who have low vision or no vision, and maybe their smartphones have,
Descriptive
texture or
text
because if you think about this, right, but the playaways, they have physical buttons, so you can feel for the play and the rewind, and so that audiobook experience might still be really valuable for people with low vision or no vision, whereas it might not be as much with a smartphone. I don't know the answer to that, but it made me realize that collection could serve a purpose in a way that I wasn't anticipating. So we, as Sam said, we have lots of ebooks and audiobooks, but reading Braille is a different way of experiencing the book than listening to it audio. Mm-hmm. And some people may just not like audio books, you know what I'm saying? So
I guess, can you track how much the playaways are getting checked out?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And so that's going to be part of that evaluation process, is sort of looking at that. They are expensive, not like egregiously expensive, but
more expensive than the cost of a CD book, typically, but I do feel like they've come down in price. I would say it used to be almost like double the cost of a CD book. Now it's like 1.5. A typical CD book runs around $40 each. A playaway runs in the realm of $65-ish to $75-ish. So it is more expensive, and I know that's like sticker shock, but yes, media is very expensive compared to the cost of a book.
And they know that people aren't buying it for their home. They know their market is libraries, and that you're not going to buy, it's like, this is going to go out to someone over and over and over again. And because we may not get a bunch of people buying these, right, they're going to charge you almost like a commercial rate for that product.
There's also different replacement. If you get water on a book and the whole book is like, the whole book could be gone. Mm-hmm. For CDs, most of the companies that we buy through have a replacement program. So if you destroy all the discs, then the whole thing is lost. But if you destroy a single disc, you can get a disc replacement. And with Playways, they also offer a replacement program. So they have a warranty for the first 2 years, I believe it is. And then after that, you can buy, it's a greatly reduced price to repurchase them. So that kind of goes, I think, into it as well. Whereas for a book, if the book gets damaged or ripped, they kind of know there's a natural lifespan for books, how many circulations you're going to get, and then you're going to get an additional copy. For media, it can circulate many, many times. So we have DVDs in the collection. We were running a list in the children's area recently of high circ DVDs just to kind of check the condition. And we have ones that have had 300 or more circulations on them. A physical book generally does not last that long because of just basic wear and tear. So that kind of factors, I think, into the price as well, is that the lifespan could be much longer and you're not getting that on their end, that repurchase of the additional copies.
Yeah. A lot to look at.
I am learning every time I come here.
This is a lot. This meeting can be a lot because, really in library board meetings, we talk about high level things, policy, budget, big purchases. This is really the nitty gritty behind the scenes, like day-to-day stuff that hopefully, once you get this approved or once, the board approves it, in theory, if you trust your staff, the staff is then doing all these things day to day to execute the library services. So, but this is a lot of like little minutia in one document for sure.
Right. Lower than that in the assessed library services workflow. I don't know if this is reasonable or not, but you put on there roving reference in kids area after summer programs, and it's true. We have a lot of people in the library, and people are always trying to figure out where are those books
For the summer program.
But it's not just the summer program. It's after every program. Yep. If you have 50 people for preschool power, they come out and some of them, they're rushing off to their next thing, but a lot of them are staying and some of them are looking for books and having trouble finding them. So it would be nice to have for maybe just 10 minutes after a program or something, have somebody hanging around to help.
Yeah. I think in all things we do, we decide like, okay, is this person most needed here or somewhere else? And
Right.
I could see a scenario where that happens. So.
And I know sometimes it's getting close to lunchtime. Someone has to get going to get to their break or whatever, but.
Yeah. No, I mean, we are so fortunate to have story times that might rival most people's large programs. Like we have very big story times. So
Just a quick comment. I don't want to segue us too far on this. Under the bullet point on page 6, under offer innovative educational, etc. 1, 2, 3, 4 up from the bottom, maintain programs supporting senior citizens.
I'm sorry, hold on, wait. Maintain
Maintain
We're here.
programs.
oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
Just from my own experience with the sheer amount of senior citizens that I work with, I think it would be important for us to keep an open mind about what type of programming are senior citizens interested in and what are their needs with the times? What are their current needs? Because your senior citizen at age 70 now, 10 years ago, wasn't the same senior citizen in that decade. I have had a lot of patients come to me and say, my 70-year-old now is much more comfortable with their cell phone than my senior citizen was even 10 years ago. And so I don't know what the library or what they do to gauge where we think senior citizens are, but their needs are changing. They're changing rapidly.
Yeah.
People are living longer. I just work with so many, and it's interesting. And I spent a very good portion of my graduate degree dedicated to specializing in geriatrics.
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about that one, and I hope that what we're offering for them continues to remain relevant in our strategic plan.
That's a really good point. And so I think what we can consider a part of this, right? Maintain programs supporting senior citizens. And of course, the key word there is supporting. If we offer a program that is just really of no interest to them, then we haven't fulfilled that that portion of the goal. And so because we have such close connections with, and I want to say this, I don't mean to say that every senior citizen that's living in Muskego lives in a senior living community, because that's absolutely not true. But as a starting off point, because we have those connections with the, I saw the job title before, the
Community activities
coordinators for the different senior living communities, we can start by saying, hey, what are you seeing that's really interesting and responsive? The other place that I think would be a good venue to gauge that is we have a First Friday coffee group, Friends of the Library, and we usually have a group of about 20 people that, because it's meeting Friday at 9 a.m, they tend to fit into that senior citizen age group. And I always show up, and if I'm not there, then Sam does, to give an update about the library. And I made them sit for a focus group once. I said, hello, it's strategic planning, now we're doing that. So I think that they would be a perfect, sounding board for some of those types of questions as well, because they come from different areas of the community and have different interests. So they'd be a perfect built-in focus group for that. So I made a note of what you said, because I do think that's important. And as we are executing this goal next year, we will make a point of sort of doing a not a test, but
a needs assessment.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Yeah, like just a pulse check. Like, hey, what's relevant to you now? So, and like I said, because we have these great community connections and built-in groups. I mean, we have so many groups that meet here during the day: sheepshead groups, crafting groups, the quilting group. They are built-in focus groups, and that's actually what we did. We invited ourselves to those different groups and said, hey, what are you using the library for? And they were part of our focus groups. So I'm sure they'd be willing for us to pop in again and go, hey, follow-up question really specifically on this part. So,
and separate from the strategic planning focus groups and surveys and things that we do have specifically for adult programming survey that we periodically hand out, that is kind of that same, it asks a variety of questions about what is the best time of day for you to attend program? What program topics are you interested in? What's your age category, like in broad ones, to kind of get that as well and see like, okay, are we offering programs that are being attended by, because that's generally where we hand them out, different age groups and stuff. And also, are we continuing to offer program topics and times that are the most relevant?
Excellent. And this is completely an aside, but explain the Titanic program to them. I'm so excited about this program.
And then periodically we will get emails from presenters, because we're always looking on the adults programming and children's as well. What are other libraries offering? What kind of programming ideas are out there and things? And then sometimes we will get approached by people, and they will send emails to myself or Brittany or whoever they think is they find on the website. But Brittany got one that was a Titanic. It's like the food of the Titanic, and she talks about the things that they would have served. And we have booked the program for this spring, and she will come with a variety of different cheeses, and I think it's plum pudding is the other item. And she will talk about the food that they were served on the Titanic and the way that meals were structured, because it was very fancy and elaborate. And so sometimes we get great program ideas like that too, tossed our way.
I love that.
Historically, history programs do very well in this community.
Very, very well.
And food programs do very well. And I will be so disappointed if the intersection of these two does not yield uninterest in the community.
I was going to say, you're probably having it around the time of the Titanic. Is it April?
That's right. It is on there.
Did you do that on purpose?
Eileen did, yes.
That was very clever. I wouldn't have even thought of that.
I think the presenter might have.
Last year, my husband saw something that was a dinner of the Titanic on the anniversary of the Titanic, and it was like $100 a person or something. Like it was like, he was like, "What do you think? Should we do it?" And I was like, I don't know.
That would have been so cool.
That
would have been an expensive library program, but I would personally have wanted to go to that. So anyway, we're excited about that. But
yes.
I appreciate that, because I think you're absolutely right that like
interests change, times change, things like that.
They really have. Just when I first started in healthcare, my elderly person lived through World War II. They lived through the
Yeah.
Great Depression. Now, seeing that generation of people, I'm not seeing them as they're dying out.
Right.
Mhm.
And there's this whole generation that has now are passing away, and people who grew up through different life experiences have some very different interests in their geriatric years. And I wouldn't want to miss that, because we still think of what our grandparents were, and that's our idea of
Right.
grandma.
Mhm.
It's 100% true. It's a good point.
Do you do a lot of programming at the senior facilities? Or do you normally have it here?
Normally here, we pre-COVID had started trying to offer more programs at the senior facilities, but it's hard. It's hard for staff timing because we do have so much going on here. And while we do want to have good partnerships and support the senior residences and all of those, if you're doing a program on their site, it's exclusively for their residents. If you do a
Right.
program here, we send the calendar to the different senior living facilities and stuff so they can make their residents aware, and then people can come here, but you can hit multiple organizations at the
Right.
same time. So we
Okay.
will still, I think COVID happened and then that really shut things down, and it's just been harder to get back into that. And we will still do things like what Brittany did. Eileen just did a visit at, I believe it was Tudor Oaks, where she was signing people up for library cards, getting people started with Libby. We will do on-site visits like that on occasion. But number one, most of the residences have very active calendars because the communities are very,
Okay.
it's an active population. They have movie showings, they have performers that come in, they have social groups, they have so many things on site that in some ways, if you're not offering something unique that they aren't already doing, then it's kind of like, well, why are you here? And then
Right.
there's also that we like to do things on site so that we can offer them to a wider audience, because we might plan something that we think is specifically going to be of interest to seniors, but it would still be open to anyone. We're not age checking people at the door.
Right.
So we might think a historical program might appeal most to a certain audience, but sometimes you can be surprised by the people who are actually attending.
Mhm.
So it is kind of an ongoing goal because we do want to have those strong partnerships with the
Mhm.
different residences. But it has to be balanced with staff time and availability, and then also the access to the services.
Okay.
And I would also say that, like, I don't think we're getting requests for that because
No.
they do have their own activities coordinators, as you said, and their job is to provide that level of activity within the lens of their community. What we get requests for is exactly what Sam sort of just summarized. Library cards getting made, how do I use the electronic services, and then
Deposit collection.
deposit collection. That's the things that they can't get from their activities coordinator. And so if we're going to prioritize the staff time and, which can translate to money, right? Staff
Yep.
time is money. We're going to go with like what they can't fulfill. And all of them do have mini libraries, but they can't beat the variety that we have, which is why the deposit collection is still relevant. So,
Mhm.
but you've done the intergenerational story times, right?
Yes.
You've taken
Yes.
George, yeah, and that's the one exception, and it's such a value add for everyone. I personally have not attended one. I've been meaning to like just show up and sort
Oh
of
yeah, Miss Samantha
see it.
came.
I have, yeah, and they're fun.
yeah. So that serves quite a need. So appreciate that.
But you're right. Other than that, we're not really getting requests for that. If anything, they might see a program that we're offering and they will tell their residents, but then they'll be like, oh, we want to bring that on site for them. Can we have the contact information for the performer? But it's not so much, we want you to come and do this, because they have their own book groups. They have their own presenters. They have their own movies that they show.
They have their own budget.
Their own budget
They have
for
their
it.
own programming budget.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of the residents will say, we have people who come who live at a variety of the different locations, but also come into the library for programs and things like that. And I think, like anything, they like the convenience of it being on site as well.
Yeah.
So they're coming here if we're offering something unique or different or things like that. But if given the opportunity, then they'll be like, well, they're doing this here. So they'll come for our movies. But if they're doing a movie on a similar day, so we have changed like the days that we've offered movies in the past or things like that to accommodate that. Lots of times it's like,
okay.
well, that's really convenient if it's here and they're coming here more to get away, I think, from that.
One of the things on packet page 7 that you might be like, what is that? Is the second bolded goal, develop products and communication plans. The very first bullet point underneath that, the discovery layer. So that is something that is being launched system-wide. It is a
New public catalog.
It's a new public catalog. It's a skin that's sitting upon the existing skeleton of the catalog. Not to be gross about it, right? Like that's because the or replacement version. It's supposed to be more effective for searching, and it's supposed to group
formats.
Exactly. Like one of the biggest, I think, challenges for our patrons is that like you might search for what's the Laura Ingalls Wilder book, the first one?
Little House on the
Oh.
Prairie. Little House in the Big
House in
Woods.
the
That's the
Big
one.
Woods.
All I could think
House
of was
in the Big Woods.
Little House in the Big Woods. So like they might search that and the print book shows up, and then you might get some other random books, and then you keep scrolling, and then the audiobook for it shows up. It's like what was the system thinking that it didn't group those things correctly, and why was this random book in the
Right.
middle? And that's so frustrating for our patrons who might only look at the first couple results and go, oh, guess they don't have the audiobook.
It also, even if they're sequential, right now, if you've used the catalog, it'll be like, here's the book, here's the audiobook on CD, here's the playaway, here's the ebook, and you're kind of scrolling down for that. The discovery layer is going to put all of those records together almost in a tab type format
Horizontal.
where
And
you'll
then
be
you can
able
just
to say,
see
this
which
is
one.
the title I'm looking for. Do I want it in large print, regular print, or audiobook? And you'll be able to select it from there. So it'll make browsing a little easier that way too. And same for movies, it'll group like Blu-rays and DVDs together so you can see much easier instead of having to scroll through a list of results like, oh, it's not available on DVD, but it is available on Blu-ray, so I can get that version.
And it's
So you won't accidentally order the Spanish version?
What
It should be-
Children's book?
It should
it should
be
be less easy
Less
to,
likely
to
to
make
do
that
that.
mistake.
I've done
Yes.
that.
yeah.
Yeah, or people who put a hold on a book and then it was the audiobook. So
Or-
it's easy to do that.
Or I
Mhm.
ordered the book club accidentally.
The book club kit?
Yeah,
Yep,
The book
that
club,
happens.
And it's like, oh no, I don't want all these copies.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, to be blunt, our current public catalog is silly.
Mhm.
It's not very good. They have not updated it with the times because they were spending their time upgrading this secondary product that they wanted to charge libraries for.
So is it still going to be under the cafe thing?
Yep.
Or-
Same website, same everything for how
that's
you
good,
would
'cause people are
pull
used
it
to
up.
seeing
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's just when you go to that website, it's going to look different.
Okay.
And so part of our responsibility is, Bridges, the library system, because it's a system-wide thing, all 24 member libraries, they're going to handle many of the tech parts of it, but it's going to be our responsibility to make sure that it's customized to our specific library in terms of the banner and the different menus and facets. Yep. And then secondly is introducing it to the public, and it's going to be different. And so you were talking about roving reference. Staff are going to have to be much more aware when someone's walking up to the public catalog during those first weeks, like there's going to be like our self-checks, there's going to be some learning experiences. People who are power users who are so good at using the catalog are going to be like, what happened? You know, they're going to be back to not being a power user for a hot minute. And so we're going to have to make sure that we like advertise what's happening, why it happened, how to use it effectively, and all those types of things. So,
and there will be staff training involved, not only on the public side of things, but on the back end of things. Some of those, they call them roll-ups, where those things are grouped. Some of that automatically happens in the system, and some of it has to be manually managed or tweaked by staff. And so there's going to be some time and training, especially as we convert, as we're cleaning up our catalog to make it function the way that we want it to.
Is Bridges making, like, inputting all the information into it, or?
So they are putting all the information in terms of all of the item records, the bid records, which are like the title information, all of that. All of that is going to be transitioned into this new system. So like everything, every record that we have is going to be in the system. The part that may not work perfectly is that since the items aren't grouped right now, it's going to do some validating that's going to check for some of those things, but it might not catch all of that. Anytime you're merging two softwares, there's going to be things that are missed or duplicated. And so that's going to be part of that staff cleanup, is finding when and some of that might just be as we're using it and we find things, but then staff's going to have to take the time to go back in there and be like, okay, these records aren't right, and now I have to link them up this way.
That sounds very
Right.
tedious. And nuanced, tedious, time-consuming.
We're hoping.
that's why it's on the action plan.
That's why
it's not
on the
gonna,
action
it's not
plan.
going to be a
It's
quick
not
thing.
going to be a quick thing. I
Maybe
think we're
most of it
hoping
will-
it's going to go smoothly and well. The software that the system decided to go with, because there are different vendors for this, is the same vendor that creates our current catalog. So I am hoping that that means that they have
Okay.
wonderful systems in place and they're very
Right.
familiar with it.
And
But-
we're not the beta testers for this.
No,
Other
it is.
libraries have implemented it
Yep.
and
Okay.
implemented successfully. So, you know,
Well, that's good.
yeah,
Yes.
you don't want to be the beta tester for something.
No,
like-
and big system, much bigger
Yep.
systems. It's a nationwide company. Milwaukee Public Library would be the nearest example. They recently converted to this
Okay.
same system. So we'll hopefully get some details from them on how it went, but they were just at the end of making the transition.
And we do not know when that's happening. The paperwork's being signed in the next, like right now. So I don't know when we're going to roll that out. Next year.
Next year, according
Question
to the
mark.
last catalogers meeting, ambitiously, because now they can talk about it because it's like the paperwork's
Yeah,
been signed, it's
yeah.
gone before the board. Ambitiously, things are going to start in April with
Oh my God.
some of that, but not necessarily with the rollout. That's
Yeah.
when the project is going to start, the back end things that they'll be utilizing staff for.
Can we
But
please just wait until summer
after
is
summer
done?
reading,
Like,
yeah.
because FYI, our busiest time is June, July, and the first part of August. Our second busiest time for staff is April and May, trying
Yes.
to prep for the summer. There's lots of like behind the scenes stuff
Mhm.
staff are doing. And so the thought of rolling that out would
I'm
be,
sure they're well aware of that though, and I do
Yeah.
think it's, maybe that's when it's starting, but I think we get to kind of determine the timeline after that. So it could be starting then for a rollout in September,
Yeah,
or
that would be perfect. September would be perfect,
but we'll see.
but we'll see. Yeah.
Thinking of the busiest time in terms of library volumes, when will the parking lot start to be done?
So it depends. So,
So, and I know
my
that's different, but sorry.
yeah, no, it's a great question.
Very important question.
So it was approved last Tuesday, the funding.
Okay.
So my next step now is to contact the Department of Public Works and get it rolled in as an alternate bid to their 2025 roads program, because hopefully we'll get the best deal and bidders on it if they're like bidding on the entire city's road program with a add-on of the parking lot.
Okay.
So that's the goal for in terms of process. So the bids will then get opened, the bid will be awarded, and then the question is timing of it all.
Hopefully not right in the middle of summer.
No, I mean I would build into the scope of the bid that it cannot be during those times.
Okay.
Really, you are at the mercy of Wisconsin weather in terms of asphalt and when it can be laid, right? Like there is a certain time, because I remember this when we were even sealing it several years ago. It's like once you get to this part of the year in the fall, you can no longer do that work, right? So I have to talk with DPW and figure out like, okay, I don't want it in June, July, and the first couple weeks in August. Now, what months am I left with? And, can we go from there? Because obviously January and February and probably even March would be difficult.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So then, you've ruled out those months. I've ruled out June, July, and August. I've cut out half the year. So I'm predicting it will be spring or early fall.
Okay.
So
I would guess May or September or possibly October if it's nice.
yeah. Right. And you never know, right? We've had some frosted. I didn't move my pumpkins in before intending to carve them, and as I cut into the pumpkins, like water was like seeping out of it because the innards were frozen. So like it's this October has been really volatile, right? It was gorgeous out today. It felt like summer. A couple days ago it was pretty chilly. So that's going to be a big part of that. But yeah, summer, similar to our restroom renovation, I told them it has to be done by June. Like we cannot have this bathroom offline. So we will make sure that happens. Anything else?
Not from me.
I really appreciate some of the feedback you guys have given. I wrote everything down that you mentioned about reference support after story times, about supporting senior citizens for programming, and how we can gather that information to make sure it's relevant. We talked about possibly a contest for some nonfiction signage. We talked about, those were the main things that I wrote down. You guys prompted my memory about something that I forgot to do related to bridges, so I wrote that down. So thank you for inadvertently doing that. The good news is that this is just round one, right? In November, at the November board meeting, you're going to see this again. And so if anything, and your thinking doesn't have to stop, right? If you think of anything in between now and the November meeting, email me. And actually, preferred to email me before the November meeting if it comes to you, only because it gives me a chance to like look at it and think about it, sometimes check with staff and say, hey, is this feasible to do or not, or work in. And then at the November meeting, what's going to happen is this draft goes before the board as a draft. So then they get to look at it, they get to ask additional questions. And then in December, the entire board votes, hopefully, to approve it. So it's not like this is the last opportunity to think about it, but it's always a good first run because like if you three had said like, I don't understand the format, it doesn't seem clear to me, it doesn't seem, if I had gotten major feedback, it would have given us time to go back and go, okay, we missed the boat on a few things or on certain sections. So this is a helpful, good litmus test of before we bring it before the full board. So I really do appreciate your guys' feedback and conversations because what you may end up seeing in November is some similar questions coming up from other members of the table. And I'm sorry if that ends up feeling a little redundant to you all, but this is a really valuable first look at it from your community perspective. So,
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so communications and miscellaneous business as authorized by law. Okay.
Our next meeting will be in the conference room again. So our little vacation has ended.
Yeah. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I second that. I don't know if you
Alright.
need a second.
You do. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we are done at 6:34 p.m.